The Miami Heat failed Jimmy Butler. Then they suspended him for 7 games. After Jimmy Butler's past performances, where he only got 9 points in back-to-back games, was deemed detrimental to the team and not playing with effort, XYZ. Now, anyone who saw how last season ended knew this is where it was going to end up in terms of him leading to a trade, especially after those comments from Jimmy Butler when he said that he was going to, if he was there for the Boston Celtics series, that they would have won. And Pat Riley seemingly coming out after and basically telling him to shut up, you're not available, leading to him saying basically you're not getting paid max money if you're not going to be available. Now, looking at that standpoint, we knew that was going to head south really fast because Jimmy Butler wants to get paid as a franchise player, and we've seen with Pat Riley, he's not going to do that. We saw it with Dwayne Wade, we saw it with Shaq, XYZ. He's just not going to pay aging players, and especially when they're not available. So I get it from both sides, right? But when you think about Miami Heat, you think about Heat culture, you think about Pat Riley, basically going down there in 1995 after falling out with the Knicks, a couple short playoff exits there from the Bulls and Reggie Miller. I believe they lost to Reggie Miller, in the 95 playoffs, where Reggie had that incredible series and falling short and kind of putting the cap on that New York Knicks regime, right? That New York Knicks run early 90s with Patrick Ewing and John Starks and Oakley and the boys. Basically putting a cap on that. But there was a whole bunch, I urge everyone to listen to Blood in the Garden or read Blood in the Garden. It details the early 90s Knicks and showing the struggles behind the scenes with Pat Riley and management. Basically, Pat Riley wanted more control. Ultimately, he wasn't given that control with the New York Knicks and was able to find that with the Miami Heat in 1995, and we know the moves that he was able to pull off, bringing in Alonzo Mourning. After they weren't able to re-sign him, they basically lowballed him. Essentially, basically lowballed him. But Pat Riley was able to be shrewd enough to get him in a trade, which really helped that franchise. And then we know about him trading for Tim Hardaway from Golden State. Had some knee injuries, but went to Miami, became an MVP candidate in 1997. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 98, I believe. Oh, no, 97. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 97, falling short, losing to the Chicago Bulls. Whatever the case may be, they fell short a couple more times before drafting Dwayne Wade. And we know how that turned out with Shaq, leading to the Miami Heat's first championship and then falling into the big three with LeBron and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. And just how that transformed into everything that it is now. Also, one of the best things that he did was having Eric Spoelstra on his staff since 1997. This will be Eric Spoelstra's 17th year coaching the Miami Heat, and I look at him as the Popovich of the East. Just having that stability, able to maximize his players' potentials, getting the most out of them, putting them in the right positions to win. No flack, no fluff, straight to it. He's been the standard constant in the Eastern Conference as a coach. So looking at it from that standpoint of what the Miami Mafia has done with Pat Riley, Alonzo Mourning in player development, Bob McAdoo, Chris Quinn, I think he's still there. Udonis Haslem, who just retired. Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley are those two guys that personify Heat culture in what they have done the past, 25 years or so. So looking at that franchise, nothing but respect for them and what they have done. But where I look to where they have failed Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler gave them a life raft. He gave them a life preserve. And when I say that, people are going to be crazy because they don't look at Jimmy Butler as that franchise guy. They don't look at him as a LeBron James. They don't look at him as an Anthony Edwards. They don't look at him as Steph Curry, as a person who lifts up a franchise. And why I always argue that is because in Chicago, he produced results. He got to the playoffs. They fell short, whatever the case may be. He had a rush up with the coach there, Fred Hoiberg, which was well documented, and people have basically been giving Jimmy Butler that problem child label since then. Goes to Minnesota, leads them to their first playoff appearance since 2004 and 2000, what was that, 18, 17? Um, so he does that. We all know about the Rachel Nichols interview in the practice where he took the bench players and beat the stars, whatever the case may be. He gets ran out of there, goes to Philadelphia, has issues with Brett Brown, who was known to be not as confrontational and as kind of a lame duck coach. I want to say that in retrospect of looking at things, but that he wasn't confrontational in practices, in film studies and film sessions, basically babying Ben Simmons as well. Looking at it from that standpoint, we all remember the Toronto Raptors Kawhi Leonard shot from the corner, sending them home and basically sending the Philadelphia into another transition. Basically, we all know that it's also documented that Brett Brown was asking Joel Embiid, can he control Jimmy Butler? And Jimmy Butler took that as a sign of disrespect and was like, you don't have to worry about controlling me. I'm going to be out of here anyway. Ends up going to the Miami Heat in 2019, which seemed to be a match made in heaven because Jimmy Butler was looking for a home, right? Looking for a place to fit in and basically be able to just hoop and basically bring that dog mentality. What better place than Miami Heat to go do that? And it fit like a glove. And there was a period of time where Miami was struggling to make the playoffs, second round exits, especially with the ending of the Dwayne Wade's retirement, bringing in Goran Dragic and Hassan Whiteside and guys like that, and things just not panning out the way that they wanted. There was a period of time there where they really weren't getting free agents to come to Miami. I remember them missing out on Gordon Hayward, missing out on Kevin Durant. Shams recently said that they missed out on Kyrie Irving during that whole time, as well as now we know about the Dame situation where that fell through. So there was a period of time there in Miami after the big three where they were really not getting anybody, not being anybody of substance, despite it being Miami, despite it being South Beach, no state income tax, all these things that you hear about Miami that are great. There was an issue there where they weren't getting free agents. They weren't getting popular guys there to sign there. So to get Jimmy Butler in his first year and then end up, whatever the case may be, whatever people want to think about the NBA bubble, whatever the case may be, he got to the finals. Beat expectations. The Miami Heat were not expected to get there. So for them to get to the finals in his first year, big step up. Defeating the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals of the bubble, and falling, in 5 to the Los Angeles Lakers. But it was a heroic effort by him in the Miami Heat, that squad with Jay Crowder, Goran Dragic, Bam, Jimmy himself, Tyler Hero as well as a young Tyler Hero. I believe that was a rookie Tyler Hero. But falling short there, the next year they go up against the Milwaukee Bucks, get smacked. Jimmy Butler has a terrible series. No one can argue that. Turns around, goes to the Eastern Conference Finals, pushes the Boston Celtics to 7 games, and fell a 3 short, right? We all remember that big 3 that he took at the end of the game and ended up coming up short. But that was just a heroic series on his end in the Miami Heat and what they were doing. The next year, they turn around and get to the NBA Finals. And that was no Tyler Hero. That was Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, and those guys shooting the lights out with Jimmy and Bam to get to the NBA Finals. And they lost in 5 to Denver Nuggets. Now, looking at that stretch, 3 Eastern Conference Finals, 2 Finals appearances. I don't know how much you can sit there and look at Jimmy Butler and be like, he didn't hold up his end of the bargain. And where Shams has come in and said basically the past 3 years, Jimmy Butler has asked for help for this roster with him and Bam. And the Miami Heat failed to get anybody. We can look at the guys that they brought in. I remember Marquise Morris and PJ Tucker that they brought in. But also I want to look at Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love, 2 guys that were aging stars. We know about Kyle Lowry and his heroics in Toronto. But historically, he has been a terrible playoff player. And that's just what it is. What it is. And with Miami, it was no different. And it was a shrewd move to bring Kevin Love in after him falling out in Cleveland. It was a good shot in the dark to see if he can have anything. And he was okay, but not enough to put you over the top. And you look at these guys that they brought in, they really didn't move the needle. Even guys like Terry Rozier, who they traded for, who I thought was a big pickup and thought that that was going to be a game changer for them, especially after his years with the Celtics and then going to Charlotte. And looking at it from that standpoint, thinking that, oh, snap, Terry Rozier plays with the Miami Heat, and he has played probably, 30, 50 games with them. So you're bringing in these guys that are falling short of expectations, aging players who are not there, who are not being as productive, not playing as much. Kevin Love now, Kyle Lowry's in Philly. And you're just looking at what this team had in terms of looking at what guys they lost. Sorry about the picture. This is the only picture that I can find of these three guys together. But Gabe Vincent, we know, went to LA. He hasn't really been productive there, but he was a game changer in their finals run. Max Strus was also another game changer in their finals run. A person who was shooting the lights out and playing defense and being versatile. Signed a 4-year, $64 million deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Caleb Martin recently left. He's in Philadelphia, recently just had a big game against the Boston Celtics, which was crazy. And his shooting was up and down. But those three guys you lost who were shooting, playing tough, being versatile, and you didn't replace them. And that's where I look at where personnel decisions and what they have been doing the past couple of years hasn't been working in terms of I'm not going to sit there and say they haven't had some good picks. They drafted Ware this past year. They have Jaime Jaquez. Those are guys that are going to be productive. And, of course, being in that Heat culture, going to be factors down the line. But that's still 2-3 years away, if we're being honest. Looking at the team, Bam Hero, who knows what that's going to look like. So I can understand the frustration from Jimmy Butler's perspective saying, yo, we need to be better. And when you look at what Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat did to teams like the Boston Celtics, my Boston Celtics, he transformed everything, right? He caused them to change coaches. He caused them to trade for Porzingis, and big moves needed to be made. Ended up getting Drew Holiday, ended up eventually winning a championship. The Milwaukee Bucks, well, their first round exit from, of course, Giannis was hurt or whatever the case may be. But that turned around and led to them trading for Damian Lillard, giving up Drew Holiday, who was vital to their success in the 2021 playoffs and making to the NBA championship and winning the finals. You can throw the New York Knicks there with Julius Randle, where Miami defeated them. So you're looking at these franchises that have uplifted, moved heaven and earth to change their franchises, their organizations, and you're looking in the Eastern Conference, especially right now. Cleveland has gotten better the past couple of years and is number one in the East. Boston has gotten better in the favorites in the Eastern Conference. Orlando has weirdly gotten better with Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner. They've just been killed with injury, so unfortunately they're going to fall out. But looking at the New York Knicks, they have made moves. And I don't want to hear about the salary cap or whatever the case may be and restrictions or whatever the case may be. Those other teams were able to make moves despite being over the cap, despite being over the luxury tax. In Miami, who's supposed to be this hotbed for free agents and this great location and this place to play, they haven't gotten anybody. The only person they recently got has been Jimmy Butler. And that was in 2019. It's 2025 now. Happy New Year. That's 5-6 years where this team has not been able to bring anybody in and help this core group of guys. When you're looking at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, it just is what it is. Even Philadelphia, despite all the injuries that they've had, have brought in Paul George. And Jimmy Butler has asked for help. Shams has said this on ESPN First Take, that the past 3 years he has asked for help and they have brought in nobody. So when you're looking at the Eastern Conference, you're looking at all these teams getting better, and the Miami Heat is kind of putting the pieces together and just scavenging and clawing to be a little bit above 500. Where's the path road to do that? They've said for a long time one of the worst things to be is middle of the road in the NBA. Just being a middling team in the NBA. You either got to bottom out or you're going to be contending. And Miami Heat don't look like they're contending right now. 2 years ago, they were in the finals, and now they're just barely above 500. Luckily, they're in the Eastern Conference where teams are trying to figure things out. Injuries have happened. But you're looking at the top teams in the Eastern Conference, and the Miami Heat don't compare to what they're doing. They don't compare to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They don't compare to the Boston Celtics. They don't compare to the New York Knicks. So I understand the frustration on Jimmy Butler's side. I understand the things from the Miami Heat side where they're not going to pay an aging player big chunks of money when they're not sure if that's going to be enough to help them get over the top. And if we're being honest, this run is done. That's something that I knew since after that finals run, honestly. I didn't see a way that the Miami Heat, especially losing those key pieces, were going to be able to turn around unless they got the Dame situation trade going. But when that didn't happen, I didn't see a pathway where they would be contenders again, at least not right now for the short term. So maybe this run is just done. Jimmy Butler's 35 years old, obviously wants to trade. Miami obviously was going to trade him now. I just want to say I don't care about the whole agent getting upset thing. We already knew Jimmy Butler was on the way out since this past off season. So I'm not going to get into all that. I think that was just stupid. And Shams won on that one. So what does the agent and the Miami Heat look now trying to dispute those reports and stuff like that? So, yeah, this run is done. And I think it was a point of failure on the Miami Heat's part and not bringing any help, not bringing in any suitable players to help Jimmy Butler, Bam, even Tyler Hero if he's still on the roster. But they were even looking to trade Tyler Hero. So that's a whole other thing that gets funny because they paid him max dollars and then we're trying to trade him. And now he's a core piece. But Jimmy Butler isn't, who was the person that led you guys to the finals, led you guys to the Eastern Conference Finals, those battles, and basically was a mercenary and now has outlived his usefulness for the Miami Heat and now looking to go on to different places. And again, as I think I said it before, I don't have an issue with Jimmy Butler wanting to be paid with the results that he has been able to produce. I also don't have a problem with the Miami Heat saying, yo, we're not going to pay you because you're not available and you're aging. And that's okay. Certain relationships in the NBA just end, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It just is what it is. It's just the end of the road for this iteration of the Miami Heat, and we'll see what they can get from him. I've been saying that I would like him to go to San Antonio with Wemby and Chris Paul and those guys down there because that will be a situation where he can really help them, and especially in the West, be a tough out. And I don't know if that's going to be the answer there for the Miami Heat and what they want in return for Jimmy Butler, but something's going to happen. They suspended him 7 games. We'll see what that leads. If this leads to a trade during the season or if he's going to be held out and traded in the offseason with a sign and trade, which will be interesting to see if that actually materializes, especially because Jimmy Butler being 35 years old and looking to sign, obviously, probably a 3-year deal at this point. It'll be interesting to see what happens and see what trade location Jimmy Butler ends up in. But yeah, I think the Miami Heat laid an egg here for the past couple of years with the overachieving Miami Heat and what these guys were doing, and then not bringing in suitable replacements to replace guys that they lost and bringing in guys to uplift the roster and bring some type of flexibility and some type of firepower that they haven't had in a long time. So looking at it from that standpoint, this is the end of the road for these two, this relationship between Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. And it was a hell of a ride. And as a Celtics fan, he scared the living shit out of me in those series. So to see it to come out to an end and see the Miami Heat falter, so be it. Well, no, overall, just this relationship's over. And we'll see what happens with the trade deadline coming up at February 6th. especially with the suspension. We're going to see what it is. We're going to see what happens after this. So thank you. If you like what you're listening to, like, comment, subscribe. And until next time.